Britain has long been fascinated by the inner workings of its royal palaces, a world often perceived through a lens of grandeur and strict protocol. However, accounts from individuals who served Prince Andrew have consistently presented a more challenging reality behind the polished public image. These testimonies, compiled over time, depict a pattern of petty cruelties, peculiar habits, and a profound sense of entitlement that reportedly became deeply ingrained over decades of royal life. In 2010, following his release from official duties, there was no reported celebration among those who worked closely with the Duke of York. Instead, the period that followed brought forth quiet narratives of private humiliations, imperious commands issued during the late hours, and a system where favours were allegedly exchanged for silence. Prince Andrew has since sought a trial by jury and formally denied all allegations of a serious nature in a New York court. The enduring question, however, remains what occurs when those who serve the crown ultimately decide to disclose their experiences, potentially revealing fissures in the meticulously crafted royal image. Long before the more prominent scandals garnered extensive media coverage, a different, quieter narrative was unfolding within the confines of the royal household, frequently discussed among the staff who attended to the royals daily. While external observers might envision palace personnel as a cohesive group of loyal, impeccably professional individuals moving seamlessly through grand hallways, the reality was considerably more intricate, particularly for those assigned to Prince Andrew. These staff members reportedly experienced heightened tension and, in some cases, harboured private resentments they scarcely dared to articulate. One such individual was a former personal protection officer who spent years serving the prince and resided in an apartment directly linked to Andrew's own rooms. For an extended period, this officer was responsible for arranging the prince's clothing, organising his personal effects, and responding to his numerous demands. Yet, beneath the formal titles and pristine appearance, his daily life was reportedly quite different. According to individuals who engaged with him, he expressed profound dislike for his role, attributing his discontent not to the demanding hours, but to the prince's conduct. His frustration was further exacerbated by what he described as small, almost unbelievable requests made by Andrew. The prince owned a Norfolk Terrier named Bendix, reportedly after Sarah Ferguson's favourite chocolates, and it was Andrew's habit to rouse his staff in the middle of the night whenever the dog stirred. At approximately 2 or 3 in the morning, the prince would activate a private buzzer or dial a direct phone line, immediately summoning his protection officer. The officer would then rush in, often half asleep, take the dog outdoors, and wait in the cold darkness, smoking a cigarette in an effort to stay awake. These unusual duties reportedly became nightly disruptions, leaving him feeling exhausted and bitter. On certain evenings, as palace security officers conducted their patrols through the gardens, they would occasionally encounter the protection officer, who often utilized these late-night moments to voice his frustrations. He openly stated his contempt for the prince, his words reportedly sharp and imbued with a deep-seated frustration that accumulated over years of perceived mistreatment. He characterized Andrew as rude, demanding, and frequently cruel in ways that reportedly astonished even those accustomed to royal entitlement. At one point, he reportedly made a grim joke, expressing a hope that the prince's upcoming ski trip would culminate in Andrew sliding off a mountain, illustrating the depth of his bitterness. This sentiment of resentment was not isolated to a single individual. Many within the royal household reportedly believed that Prince Andrew had been permitted to misbehave for an excessively long period. Some even speculated that had Prince Philip witnessed such conduct, he might have intervened much earlier, perhaps even physically placing a bar of soap in the prince's mouth the first time he allegedly cursed at a servant. Instead, Andrew reportedly matured into adulthood without significant boundaries, treated as if he could never commit an error. Staff frequently observed that he was widely considered the Queen's favourite, a prince seemingly protected from repercussions in an environment where hierarchy dictated every aspect of life. Indeed, hierarchy permeated every level of the palace. The royal residence functioned not as a conventional workplace but more akin to a self-contained kingdom. Staff were segregated into 3 distinct canteens, one designated for senior officials, offering French menus and formal white glove service, another for administrative personnel, and a third for the lowest ranks, comprising maids and footmen, who typically utilized microwaves and kettles. Even in the staff corridors, individuals reportedly moved with an implicit understanding of their position within this rigid social order. Those who began their service at a young age often remained throughout their entire careers, with the royal household becoming their primary world, their family and their identity. Loyalty was not merely encouraged, it was reportedly woven into the very fabric of the institution. This unwavering loyalty, however, carried a significant risk. Regardless of Andrew's reported behavior, no one was inclined to challenge him, neither the footmen, nor the valets, nor even the protection officers who accompanied him everywhere. They were staff, not companions, assigned to ensure his safety, not to question his actions. This operational dynamic leads to a more troubling inquiry, one that insiders reportedly only dared to utter after the eventual public controversies if this was his conduct within the palace. What transpired when he was beyond direct observation? The more one explores the inner workings of the royal household, the clearer it reportedly becomes that power does not merely influence behavior, it also serves to protect it. By the time Prince Andrew reached adulthood, his environment was reportedly structured in such a way that every perceived flaw, every questionable decision, and every cruel remark seemed to pass without consequence. People observed, people conversed in hushed tones, but no one directly confronted him. It was this pervasive atmosphere of silence that would later prompt serious questions regarding the prince's activities outside the palace walls. Protection officers assigned to Andrew reportedly characterized their role as one of duty devoid of judgment. They functioned as silent observers, perpetually present, but never interceding. To those outside this system, it might appear improbable that these officers would not possess detailed knowledge of Andrew's private life. However, those within the system understood the reality: a protection officer is not a confidant. Irrespective of the casualness of conversations or the friendliness of interactions, they remained staff members. They did not follow him into private chambers, nor did they inquire about his destinations or motives. Their primary responsibility was straightforward: to ensure his safety, not to hold him accountable. Nevertheless, even from a distance, they reportedly observed subtle clues: unusual travel arrangements, unexpected companions, and abrupt alterations to routine. At the time, these observations reportedly did not coalesce into a coherent picture. In retrospect, some officers later acknowledged that they might have been witnessing the periphery of a far more serious unfolding narrative. Within the palace environment, staff loyalty reportedly functioned as a protective barrier, safeguarding not only reputations but also established patterns of behavior. A maid might observe something suspicious but would reportedly never report it. A footman might inadvertently overhear a disquieting conversation but maintain silence. Fearing the loss of the only life he had ever known, senior officials, many of whom were retired military personnel, reportedly prioritized discipline as loyalty first, with questions deferred. Above all of them stood Andrew, shielded by his rank, his heritage, and a queen who reportedly harbored deep affection for him. Even within this stringently controlled environment, signs of strain were reportedly evident. Individuals described him as childish, entitled, and disinclined to accept responsibility. His widely publicized demand that staff meticulously arrange dozens of stuffed animals in a specific order daily was cited as merely one instance of a man who reportedly never outgrew his most immature habits. To many, his conduct was reportedly less indicative of a seasoned royal figure and more akin to someone emotionally arrested in childhood. When an individual with such a mindset is granted unrestricted freedom, the outcomes can reportedly be unsettling. Within the palace, staff frequently pondered quietly. Who could conceivably intervene? Discipline was reportedly lenient, criticism discouraged, and consequences virtually non-existent. Those who served him for the longest periods were often the most disillusioned, openly stating that he was the sole royal who consistently generated problems. Even among his siblings, his reported behavior was distinctive, reportedly leaving others perplexed as to how he continually avoided repercussions. This culture of silence was not confined to the palace grounds. Eventually, it reportedly extended into the external world, particularly as Andrew began to cultivate relationships far beyond England. It was at this juncture that private whispers reportedly escalated into apprehension. Private concerns transformed into public scandals, and the prince could no longer rely on the quiet loyalty of staff who had once shielded him from everything, including himself. Charlotte Briggs once held the conviction that serving the royal family represented the pinnacle honor of her life, envisioning an environment where loyalty shaped character, kindness fostered goodness, and mutual respect prevailed. Nothing, however, reportedly prepared her for the reality she encountered at the age of 21. What she had anticipated as a dream imbued with royal prestige reportedly became the kind of assignment no staff member desired, a posting within a palace where external appearances sparkled, but the conduct behind closed doors was entirely different. Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, was reportedly not the charismatic public figure once widely admired. Behind Buckingham Palace's imposing gates and pristine corridors, he was reportedly known by those closest to him as rude, prone to outbursts, and astonishingly entitled. Charlotte, who entered his service with aspirations of pride, was quickly confronted by a man whose temper could reportedly transform the slightest oversight into a full-blown crisis. Years later, when she finally chose to speak publicly, her statements reportedly lacked any attempt at politeness, instead being sharp, candid, and driven by experiences she could no longer suppress. She stated that she did not care for Andrew's feelings, describing him as horrible and nasty, a man who had reportedly caused her to cry countless times. Her earliest recollections reportedly depicted Andrew as someone who believed the world existed solely to cater to him. He reportedly issued commands for tasks he could easily perform himself, as if exerting minimal effort would somehow diminish his status. Curtains reportedly became one of his primary obsessions, not their hue or fabric. But the minute gap Charlotte once inadvertently left between them, a discrepancy so minuscule it was barely perceptible, this minor detail was reportedly sufficient to provoke one of his notorious outbursts. On that particular occasion, he reportedly stormed from his office, advanced down the corridor, and screamed at her using language described as far beneath the dignity of a prince. His voice reportedly resonated through the halls, causing staff to freeze while Charlotte wept. This incident reportedly served as a stark reminder that in Andrew's world, even perfection carried inherent risks. The most peculiar aspect was reportedly not his anger, but his demands unusual rituals that bordered on childishness, yet were enforced with military precision. His well-known collection of stuffed animal 72 teddy bears, accompanied by a hippo and a black panther reportedly, had to be arranged with exactitude. Laminated instruction sheets reportedly dictated their positions with the precision of a battle plan. Charlotte reportedly even underwent comprehensive training on how to handle the stuffed toys, as if preparing for a role in palace security rather than arranging plush toys on a bed. His bedroom presented equally rigorous demands. Pillows had to be centered to the millimeter, pajamas perfectly aligned, the bears displayed during the day, removed at night, and then meticulously restored at sunrise. Staff reportedly whispered among themselves, questioning the nature of an adult who required such rituals to function. For Charlotte, these requirements were reportedly not whimsical, but utterly exhausting, making every day feel like navigating on fragile glass, where a single misstep could reignite his temper. Other servants reportedly confirmed the identical pattern of behavior, Andrew reportedly barking orders to assert dominance, expecting deference without extending the slightest courtesy, and belittling staff simply to reinforce their subordinate position. Unlike his siblings, Andrew reportedly bore no significant royal burden. He was not destined for the throne, nor was he overwhelmed with extensive responsibilities. Yet, he reportedly conducted himself like a monarch, presiding over a staff that often felt intimidated. Charlotte Briggs's narrative was reportedly not solely about tantrums or teddy bears. It was about a man who reportedly derived satisfaction from demoralizing others, who cultivated a workplace environment so oppressive that even a palace felt like a confinement. And this, reportedly, was merely the initial phase of a broader pattern. From his earliest years, individuals within the palace reportedly observed something distinct about young Andrew, not merely mischievous or curious, but exhibiting an unusual unkindness. While Prince Charles immersed himself in literature and Princess Anne navigated challenges with resilience, Andrew reportedly moved through royal corridors as if inherently believing the world was his domain. Staff reportedly first noticed this in subtle moments: his demanding calls for attention, his treatment of every room as a personal stage, and his inclination to command, tease, or undermine individuals based on his mood. Even as a toddler, he reportedly seemed drawn to cruelty in a manner akin to other children's attraction to toys. Rather than shyly giggling near the Queen's guards, he would reportedly strut before them, making faces and ridiculing their rigid posture. When the guards maintained their stillness, as duty required, he reportedly did not lose interest. Instead, he grew furious, pushing harder to elicit a reaction, ostensibly to feel triumphant. This was reportedly the initial indication of a pattern that would persist for years if he could not secure admiration. He would reportedly settle for domination. Animals, too, reportedly became targets of his irritation and boredom. He reportedly kicked the family dogs when they failed to move quickly enough, laughing when they yelped, and struck the legs of horses with sticks simply to observe their reactions. The grooms, typically reserved and endlessly patient, reportedly reached their limit. One day, after he had reportedly struck a horse one too many times, they reportedly dragged him to a manure pile and buried him in it head first. This act was reportedly harsh, shocking, and unforgettable, perceived by the grooms as the only language he seemed to comprehend. Yet even this was reportedly not the most severe aspect of his childhood behavior. His bullying reportedly extended into every facet of his young life. His younger brother, Edward, reportedly became a frequent victim, enduring shoves, slaps, stolen desserts, and bruises that no one reportedly dared to question aloud. These were reportedly not the rough and tumble games common among siblings. They were contests Andrew reportedly felt compelled to win, moments he exploited to assert his power over someone smaller and more gentle than himself. The palace staff reportedly bore the brunt of his behavior daily. One footman reportedly suffered such extensive taunting that he eventually retaliated, landing a punch that left the young prince with a black eye. When the footman subsequently approached the Queen, anticipating dismissal, she reportedly surprised him by refusing his resignation. Even the Queen reportedly seemed to acknowledge that Andrew had pushed boundaries too far, and that the boy's behavior had escalated beyond mere childish mischief. His schooling reportedly did nothing to temper his nature. At both prep school and later at Gordonstown, classmates reportedly assigned him cruel nicknames, not out of envy but from a combination of fear and frustration. He was reportedly known for his tantrums, sneers, and laughter that consistently came at someone else's expense. Teachers reportedly described him as smug, entitled, and exceptionally difficult to discipline. As he matured, this behavior reportedly did not diminish; instead, it intensified. Stories circulated of him reportedly tugging at female staff members' clothing during palace events, smearing food on their faces, and barking vulgar commands at servants as if they existed solely for his amusement. During camping excursions, he reportedly dismantled other children's shelters, tossed their belongings into rivers, and observed their distress as if it were entertainment. Those who worked most closely with him reportedly summarized his character with a poignant statement: he was reportedly not raised as a prince, he acted like a tiny tyrant, throwing objects to the floor, cursing at staff, and issuing orders rather than speaking. His world reportedly appeared to be constructed upon the belief that everyone else's purpose was to serve him. Within the intricate environment of the British royal household, not all members of the royal family were reportedly regarded equally by those who served them. Former staff members consistently drew stark distinctions between Prince Andrew and his relatives, describing a degree of entitlement and immaturity that reportedly rendered him uniquely challenging to work for. While other members of the family reportedly earned respect and loyalty through fairness and decency, Andrew's behavior allegedly generated tension and frustration at every turn. Prince Charles, for instance, was reportedly remembered by palace staff for his consistent courtesy, patience, and respect towards his employees. Accounts describe him taking the time to acknowledge staff efforts, occasionally pausing to converse with them in corridors or on the grounds, and offering simple expressions of appreciation. Even when he required long hours or demanded meticulous standards, his tone was reportedly professional, not demeaning, and staff frequently concluded their duties feeling valued rather than humiliated. These gestures, though seemingly minor, held considerable significance in a rigid, hierarchical setting like the palace, reportedly fostering a sense of dignity and mutual respect that emanated from the highest levels. Similarly, Prince Edward reportedly cultivated a reputation for being approachable and considerate. Staff members recalled feeling at ease in his presence, noting that he rarely imposed unnecessary tasks or acted whimsically. He reportedly upheld expectations commensurate with his status, but avoided the unpredictable late-night commands that reportedly became a characteristic of Andrew's service. Whereas Andrew's valet might be roused in the middle of the night to exercise a dog or perform other unusual errands, staff working with Edward could generally anticipate a predictable and equitable workload. These distinctions, though subtle, reportedly highlight a fundamental difference in leadership styles and personal character among the royals. Princess Anne, recognized for her robust work ethic, also reportedly garnered admiration from her staff. Her household was reportedly managed with precision, but she treated employees as collaborators in service rather than as subjects of caprice or amusement. Former staffers often described her as professional yet personable, an individual who reportedly inspired loyalty through competence rather than through fear or favoritism. Even within her demanding routines, Anne's fairness reportedly allowed her staff to take pride in their work, free from anxiety about unpredictable behavior. In stark contrast, Prince Andrew reportedly left staff feeling exhausted, frustrated, and at times, humiliated. Former maids and valets recounted his whimsical or childish demands, such as the widely known teddy bear arrangements, or being summoned at 2 a.m. for trivial tasks as consistent sources of stress. One former maid reportedly characterized her experience working under Andrew as the sole negative period in her entire royal career, asserting that he consistently undermined the atmosphere. Unlike his siblings and peers, Andrew's behavior reportedly originated from an entitlement reinforced by a lifetime of privilege, a perception of being the Queen's favorite, and a reported absence of boundaries during his formative years. This comparative analysis reportedly underscores that the palace system itself was not inherently oppressive. Many royals reportedly treated staff with respect, even within the established hierarchy. It was Andrew's personal disposition and upbringing that reportedly created a uniquely challenging environment. While palace life necessitated obedience and discretion, it also reportedly afforded opportunities for fair treatment and mutual respect, as evidenced by the experiences of those serving other members of the family. Ultimately, these contrasts reportedly paint a comprehensive portrait not only of Andrew as an individual, but also of the broader dynamics within the royal household. Privilege can reportedly coexist with responsibility. Entitlement can be mitigated by respect, and leadership within the family is reportedly defined as much by personal conduct as by title. Andrew's reported behavior, when juxtaposed against the more considerate approaches of his relatives, reportedly emphasizes that the underlying issue was never the palace environment itself, but rather the choices and character of the prince in question. From the very beginning, the narratives surrounding Prince Andrew reportedly extended significantly beyond the confines of the palace corridors. While initial accounts predominantly focused on staff valets, maids, and footmen enduring his reported tantrums, incessant demands, and cruel whims, a far more serious and darker narrative reportedly began to emerge in the background. Allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse would eventually attract international attention, reportedly exposing a consistent pattern: a man enveloped in privilege, unchecked power, and the quiet obedience of those around him. Central to these serious claims is Virginia Giuffre, who publicly accused Andrew of sexual abuse during her underage years. In her testimonies and interviews, she reportedly detailed being coerced into encounters with the prince, including at the residences of notorious associates. These allegations resulted in civil lawsuits and intense public scrutiny. Despite Andrew's consistent denials, the persistence of these claims reportedly highlights a troubling reality: status, wealth, and influential connections reportedly created opportunities inaccessible to others, while simultaneously limiting accountability at every juncture. What reportedly links these grave allegations to the daily experiences of palace staff is a recurring motif: the combination of power and protection reportedly fosters impunity. Staff members were frequently expected to silently tolerate Andrew's reportedly childish or cruel behaviour, aware that questioning a senior royal could jeopardise their positions or reputations. Valets, maids, and protection officers were reportedly trained to obey, not to challenge. Loyalty was considered mandatory, and fear of reprisal reportedly compelled many to remain silent. The same systemic structure that reportedly shielded him from accountability within the palace mirrored the frameworks outside, reportedly allowing inappropriate behaviour to persist unchecked for years. Even minor grievances reportedly illustrate this pattern, such as ordering staff to perfectly arrange teddy bears, rousing valets at unusual hours, or ridiculing those who displeased him. These actions might appear trivial on the surface, but when considered in conjunction with the more severe allegations, a disturbing continuity reportedly emerges: a personality accustomed to acting without consequence, where personal whims and desires could reportedly supersede the comfort, safety, and rights of anyone within his sphere. The palace's opulent walls reportedly concealed not only privilege, but also a system that enabled wrongdoing to endure unchallenged. Staff testimonies and public allegations collectively reveal a man reportedly insulated by hierarchy, whose behaviour consistently exploited the disparity between authority and accountability. The domestic narratives, while not criminal in nature, reportedly demonstrate early indicators of a mindset where entitlement eclipsed empathy and status outweighed morality. As these patterns reportedly extended into high society, the consequences became significantly more severe, with silence, protection, and social influence reportedly masking harm from public view. By connecting the grievances of domestic staff with broader misconduct claims, a clear picture reportedly emerges: Prince Andrew's behaviour was not isolated, impulsive, or a result of misunderstanding. It was reportedly fostered within a culture of unquestioned loyalty, fear and institutional shielding. Every demand, prank, and cruel jest within the palace reportedly mirrors the same dynamic that permitted greater transgressions to occur beyond its walls. Within the royal household, loyalty is reportedly more than a mere virtue. It is an unwritten law, a binding force that shapes every interaction and decision. For many palace staff, their lives reportedly became inextricably linked to their service. Young recruits often commence their duties in their late teens, dedicating decades to the household. Work, personal identity, and financial stability were reportedly interwoven so tightly that departing, questioning, or even hinting at discomfort could jeopardize everything they had meticulously constructed. The palace was reportedly not merely a place of employment; it constituted their entire world, and within it, loyalty was reportedly the currency that sustained them. Insiders reportedly described this environment as one governed by both loyalty and fear. Staff were reportedly trained not only to serve but also to understand their designated place, a subtle, sometimes explicit, reminder that their existence was to uphold the royal's authority, rather than to forge friendships or alliances. Challenging a royal's behaviour, reporting misconduct, or even expressing frustration reportedly felt almost inconceivable. The implicit rule was reportedly unambiguous: obey, endure, and safeguard the household's image at all costs. Disobedience could reportedly lead to embarrassment, dismissal, or worse. Financial dependence reportedly amplified this control. Many staff members had reportedly ascended from low-ranking positions to trusted household roles over several decades. Leaving reportedly entailed losing not only an income, but also housing, pension benefits, social networks, and a sense of purpose intimately tied to royal service. Even minor errors could reportedly elicit harsh criticism from the royals, reinforcing that silence frequently represented the safest course of action. The stability and benefits associated with palace life reportedly functioned as invisible constraints, keeping staff compliant long after simple loyalty might have diminished. Institutional protection reportedly added another layer of restraint. The palace's hierarchy, stringent protocols, and loyal senior officials reportedly created an almost impenetrable shield around the royal family. Security officers, administrators, and experienced household members reportedly all participated in maintaining order and safeguarding the royal image, rendering the notion of speaking out seemingly futile. Misconduct could reportedly persist in private because the system itself reportedly prioritized the family's reputation above all else. The confluence of loyalty, fear, and institutional protection reportedly fostered prolonged silence. Even troubling behavior could reportedly go unnoticed or unchallenged for years, leaving staff to endure hardships in quiet isolation. Obedience reportedly became second nature, a survival mechanism in a world where questioning authority risked personal and professional ruin. Staff reportedly witnessed misconduct, cruelty, and entitlement firsthand, yet their voices were largely confined to hushed conversations behind closed doors. Within this meticulously controlled environment, the royal household remained insulated from external scrutiny, while those closest to the family were reportedly trapped between the demands of duty and the dictates of conscience. Every act of loyalty reportedly reinforced this cycle, creating a system where power remained unchecked and privilege dominated. Prince Andrew's reported true nature has ultimately been exposed, leading many to contemplate what other secrets may still be concealed behind royal